Story 1: The Rise and Fall. I hate birds. I've hated birds ever since I was forced to go to my grandmother Vera's home, who lived de-isolated in her inherited Victorian mansion. She let most of her estate fall away to ivy and rot, but not the 160-year-old astronomy room. That room was precious to her, a greenhouse that stored birds from all over the world in a stone and marble chamber topped by a glass dome etched with outlines of the constellations, now shrouded by palm leaves, humidity, and hundreds of birds in flight. Vera had no need to see the heavens. She resented religion, culture, and humans as much as I resented birds. My brother fancied her calls and seeming ability to call down certain birds by song, and took my brother under her wing. The woman and her wealth turned away from me, and I had the privilege of never thinking of her fanaticism of birds of any kind until the night something landed in my yard. A solid but soft HUFH turned my attention. From the TV to the window behind my couch, I saw a bit of my yard on fire. I worried some kids were pulling a prank that got out of hand and ran outside expecting to see a homemade bomb. Instead, I found a crater about the size of a car hood. In the center sat something that looked porous, about the size and shape of a metallic grape, smoldering in the dirt, the dry grass around the impact. Point was on fire from the overwhelming heat the dainty blob of metal put out. I stepped back, fearing it might be radioactive. I got my metal wheelbarrow and flipped it over the crash site, wishing that I was wearing lead pants. After a few belts of vodka, I forgot to care about radiation poisoning or Vera or the never-ending calls of the fucking nightingales and went to bed. I went out the next morning with the intention of following Chernobyl's example, which was filling the hole with a few bags of concrete. Sitting in my garage, I stopped right outside my door and stayed there. 50 crows, at least 50, perched on the underbelly of the overturned wheelbarrow. They moved as slowly and deliberately as mole, NKS, each one clustering in as close they could to allow more on the wheelbarrow. The ones at the end slipped off the smooth edges to a gentle, dripping tar, something I had never seen them do before. The sight of all those black, soulless eyes together made me wish I had a shotgun. As I approached them, they tried to snatch the keys out of my pocket and flew off with the rest of the crows up and over my house, joining the flying highway of crows that flew in straight, opposing lanes from my house to somewhere in town. I followed the crows to the Ortown shopping center, consisting of for stores and for vending machines that did nearly as much business as the stores. I parked and watched in a bit of awe at seeing the crows rip out and use the dollars and cards from pick-pocketed wallets, tapping in selections mid-flight and working in teams to open the door to grab the snack inside. Another set of crows worked by sending the birds up into the machines to clear the spirals while remove the flaps to get the goods and to let their bodies inside get out before painfully hauling the 3 or 4 sealed bags of snacks and cookies. Narrow's flight back to my home. 200 crows piled a mountain of chips, cookies, French fries, and half-eaten chunks of whatever they could find in the dumpsters into my yard. Without a caw or croak, they made another separate, neat pile of shiny things ranging from earrings to broken sea discs. They were especially fond of miniature beach balls. Anything spherical, really. so that they could stage their own competitions. They had a crowd with two distinct cheers for their favorite as the crows competed, and a ring of spectators. They would wobble on the ball for as long as a minute. The first two falls seemed to lose. The winner was denoted by having a spot of red house paint on for of its tail feathers. What I saw crawling on my land-to-low repulsed me to no end, but I couldn't turn my eyes away and be left wondering what the heck they were doing. I began to watch them night and day. Some crows began to sing in harmonically. By day 2, they had invented a wobbling, bobbing dance that would infect every crow, all dancing to a song that consisted of talons scratching and tapping on a piece of bark. They made massive communal nests from the red river clay and reinforced them with sticks and made it soft with cotton and down. 90 crows could build what I considered to be lumpy, horrible-looking monstrosities that could hold 200 crows in one night. These things were looking to attract new residents, and it was working all the time to the tune of 50 more crows an hour. I wanted to call an exterminator, but my morbid curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what would happen if I moved the wheelbarrow first. I walked out to my yard on the 4th day after the thing fell from the sky, determined to remove what was under the wheelbarrow before I could get within 2 steps of it. A very large crow swooped down and just grazed the finest level of my cornea. It was enough to stop me dead in my tracks and hold the back of my palm up to my weeping left eye. 2 equally large crows stood on the wheelbarrow. One held a rattlesnake's head firmly in its talons, while the other held the snake's tail and long rattler. The crows peered at me, seeming to want to communicate one message: "Come any closer, human," and we let our weapon go. I backed away. Prior life decisions made it impossible for me to get anything more powerful than a super soaker. I yelled and threw firecrackers, but the birds watched me like the town idiot causing a disturbance. They didn't fall for the sticky or bat traps. They refused even look at the poisoned food I left out. I know I have the heart of a marshmallow. They responded calmly and rationally to everything I did. I retreated up to the attic window for 1 week. Hatching the crows create their own tools, writing utensils crafted for their feet and beaks, works of art made of gold thread and sticks. Their mud apartments all had their own styles, their own whispering, cackling language, sparse and quiet and strange for what was once such a blunt and noisy creature. They sang and staged outdoor plays, mock battles, and love scenes. The crows from neighboring adobe apartments. Above all else, what concerned me was the fact that very few crows were working at the end. Most ate or copulated or sang or danced or balanced on balls or all of the above within eyesight of the holy relic under the wheelbarrow, while a highway of doves, pigeons, seagulls, and the occasional pet bird worked to bring in food and supplies, who were then allowed to eat from the cookie pile under the watchful eye of the other crows. They paid very little attention to me, while the bottle of gin seemed to have been glued to my lips. Perhaps they were too busy trying to grasp the concept of an economy. Perhaps they were experiencing anxiety for the first time and thinking they were the only ones who had ever grasped the concept of an economy. I watched them allocate food to the sick and the young first. Certain birds acted as mite and pest exterminators for the crows. Others hung small wires or bracelets around other crows' neck. S is what I can only imagine is fashion. A finch displayed prize grasshoppers and June bugs, not unlike selling meat in an open market. They sung furiously, they ate constantly, they copulated freely, and they stayed immaculately clean. None of this softened my heart, for I knew what could destroy them. The same thing that was destroying me during my week of observation, I see, elected nearby holly berries and brewed them in a hot, dark place. After a week, the berries were reduced to a soup of nearly 100% ethanol alcohol. I brought out the deep tub to the birds as an offering. They ignored it at first, as they did with everything else I brought, but a few brave crows seemed tempted by the fumes. When they ate some of the mash and did not tire, others swooped high, and to experience the new thing they drank more than I could have ever hoped, more than I thought was imaginable. Watching the crows gorge themselves from above was like watching a wildfire smolder into existence and flare into a roaring, raging chaos where the crows couldn't stop going, rolling on the ground in half flight and uselessly kicking their legs. At once dance so gracefully. Within an hour, the skies were filled with mid-air collisions, incessant cawing and loose feathers from those that had been killed before they hit the ground. In less than an hour, the yard was a sleek black carpet of ruffled black feathers and broken limbs. Even the snake was dead. The ones who had not died of poisoning or assault were leaving with the other slave birds in the mania. Tour exodus. One brilliant bird of paradise flew. Among them, I recognized it. It was one of Vera's birds. No sooner than the idea came into my mind, I heard her twitchy, shrill cries. Behind me, she walked through the door in my fence, as twiggy and full of bitterness as I remembered. She looked at the carnage, at the bird I assumed escaped, the pile around the wheelbarrow, and the empty tub that once held highly alcoholic berries. She asked how I could still be just as stupid as she remembered me being as a kid, as two big, clean-cut men walked into my yard. One carefully reached up and tried to grab the bird while Vera told the other to search around. The damn specter sent the starstone to the wrong gains. When one of the lugs kicked over the wheelbarrow, I tried to stop him. He spun me around and choked me out in less than 3 seconds. I awoke 6 hours later with a pounding headache, laying with the crows. The meteor under the wheelbarrow was gone. The Clallam Free Press had an actual news story to run. For a change this morning, Vera Gaines, 94, attacked and killed by a mob of crows. A mob the paper warned that is reported to grow larger daily in unrelated news. Instances of break-ins of bars and liquor stores have skyrocketed. The vandals smash a few bottles of booze and always leave a calling card of a few crows' feathers. Story 2. I was born on a child farm. Part 0. I was lucky enough to know my 93-year-old grandmother when I was a child. She was a window into another era. A harder time. Most people weren't but much more than farmers back then. She recalled to me one morning, if you didn't have friends to help your family out of the hole, and the children started to go hungry, you sold the children. Lucky ones were put to work in the fields or factories. The unlucky ones were purchased by bad people like Rannon Shinnon. I asked Rannon Zenong was. It seemed to pain her to remember Rannon had a knack, no, an unholy curse for locating unwanted children. made a whole empire on children, the bastard, spies, killers, saboteurs. He let them go once they hit a certain age, let them get educated, have a family, and get accustomed to the world. He lets them grow old. And then, just before your end, Rannon comes back to take everything you ever were. To make you a child again. He gains knowledge and strength, reaping the age from his children, leaving them alone in a world that has already outgrown them. Again, homeless and without a family, they do whatever Rannon Shinnon tells them to do. Some foolish children believe that they can really escape by moving to another country or changing their name. It only takes a few returns for you to realize that Rannon Shinnon owns you forever. But that man's dead now, right, Grandma? She gave me a look I would later learn was 1,000-yard stare and whispered, "No, he only looks like a man. But no man can track you down, unchanging. Years later, stronger, faster, if anything." I asked why she was telling me this. It seemed to firm her up a bit. "Mind your daddy, boy. I suspect he never wanted to be a father. He's a secret government agent, a spook. He doesn't legally exist, nor does he really want to. I fear you may be unwanted, and he comes for unwanted. See, Hildren." My grandma stood up, went inside, and locked the door. Those words were the last my grandmother ever spoke to me. Experiences like that are why I was so afraid as a child. It was the same fear that made me hide under the nearest table and watch through gaps in the tablecloth whenever there was a knock at the door. That's how I saw the conversation between my father and the boy with the tennis ball scar running along the back of his shaved head. One summer afternoon, the boy was about my age at the time, around 10. He wore dorky clothes, clogged black shoes with saggy tan socks the same color as his brownish shorts, and buttoned to the top button short-sleeve shirt. He was skinny, but not frail. The kind of kid that should have a few fish dangling on a line as he walked along a dirt country road. Just a simple-looking boy with a massive brain surgery scar. He looked directly up at my father with eyes, and looked directly into them. The boy was the only one to ever stare directly into my father's deep, cold eyes that belonged to a man that murdered an extraterrestrial with his sidearm. "Bend down to talk to me, if you would." Hawking upwards put stress on the larynx. The boy spoke in a deep southern accent, but he was quick, sharp. He might have been the sharpest speaker I had ever heard. The country boy drove the English language like it was a Ferrari. My father never bent nor bowed, not even when customary to foreign dignitaries. That being stated, my father placed a rolled-up newspaper on the hardwood floor and took a knee on it. "Now, seeing eye to eye with the child, what is your name, son?" Robert Larynx, a fraction of a smirk edge from the corner of my father's mouth before he twitched it away. "How may I help you, Robert?" The child's neutral face finally smiled, but the eyes stayed dead, wide, and unfocused. It was like something was talking through him. "Thank you for asking, sir. You may help me by letting me help you. I represent a powerful man, a merchant of many ideas, forces, and concepts, Mr. Rannon Shinnon." I watched my father's nostrils flare, his chest expand, his neck brighten with blood. His eyes became so focused on this young visitor that he didn't see me jump just a few feet away at the mention of that name. Grandma's words all came flooding back to me. She was right. I was unwanted. And what business does this Shinnon want with me? Not you, sir, your son. Mr. Zennon knows just about every unwanted child around here. He also knows you cannot advertise a child for sale using normal methodology, so he sends me in his place. I am prepared to sign a deal right now, Mr. Clinton Moxley. I am willing to offer secrets in return for your son. Howard blood thumped against my eardrums in anticipation of what my father would say. He wasn't really thinking about selling me, was he? What compensation do you intend to offer? At the scarred boy removed the fat little complex-looking mechanical tubes from his back pocket with a twisted grin beaming on his face. Dad opened them with a strange little press handbrake maneuver to thin. A metallic tubes fell out. My father unfurled a thin orange transparent film from one of the tubes. The film looked like multiple snapshots of documents, equations, and blueprints. It made my her stop and carefully inspect both scrolls. After about a minute of tense silence, my father closed the tubes and asked, "If you know what these are, you know that there are 30 more documents in any one set." My father countered, "That's the full amount for your son, little Howard. Consider it carefully. My patriotic friend, Rannon Shinnon, can be an asset to your organization and your country, rather than a target. Your agents could not get this information, but Rannon can guide you through doorways that remain hidden to the common man. Isn't it or important to safeguard the country, the world, the entire human civilization? Wouldn't you be negligent in your responsibilities, powerful responsibilities, ones that are arguably more important than the president? You would be, oh yes, how you would be. And when little Howard grows up to become the man he will become, to betray you and every secret you and your organization strive to keep, you will see what a mistake it was not to sell him here and now." My father opened the second tube and read for a handful of seconds before murmuring, "Even these are not enough for me to hand over my firstborn son. Tell your employer he will need a better offer." I inhaled deeply, trying to stay as silent as possible without letting him hear me cry tears of loving, grateful joy. I tried to telepathically tell my father that I loved him. Then the boy reached into his shit-brown shirt pocket. "I am not an employee, I will have you know, sir. I am a consultant from Mr. Shi Nong. I even argued with him. You know, I said it was foolish to ask for a child from a family that's healthy, well-clothed, and housed. But the master has taught me another lesson," Robert said, with a warm smile as he removed a thin yellow envelope from his front pocket. There was just one piece of paper inside, with one line written on it. My father put the piece of paper in his pocket. "Lines return when you are ready," Robert said as he turned and walked away. My father watched him for a while before shutting the door. He spoke to me without looking at me. "Some people will be coming over soon. You can keep hiding under the table if you wish." He made a few calls in half an hour for dark armored sedans with jet-black windows pulled up in front of my house. Sometimes my her would have over people from work, but only when something big was happening. My father and 8 other men and women with the same deep, cold eyes went into the silent room, the only room that you couldn't hear inside of. They stayed in there for 3 hours before my father opened the door and asked for me to step inside. I had never been inside the silent room before and was curious what was inside. It was hard to see and near impossible to breathe without coughing in the cloud cigarette smoke cloud, but I managed to make out a few slide projectors projecting on a screen between steel leg cabinets, a pinned U.S. map, and the standing gun safes. Typical boring adult stuff. My father told me to sit down. After I did, he sat across a table that we shared with the 8 strangers. My father needed more time than usual to gather enough thoughts just to say, "You were born into the Bureau. That means that your life belongs to the Bureau, my Bureau. Our Bureau, UA, expected to become a field agent one day for our organization. Typically not now, not without training. But the Bureau must remain fluid to take every opportunity that we can. We have a chance to come into contact with a person of great interest to us, a person that we have not been able to reach after 25 years of attempts." My heart tightened in my chest as I braced for. That's why the Bureau needs you to fulfill this mission and to leave with Robert tomorrow. The tears all broke out at once. I was being sold. My father then placed his hand on mine. It was the just physical contact I ever had with him up until that point. It must have seemed like one of the least warm displays of affection in world history, but to me it felt like a reassuring embrace. The tears instantly stopped. The Bureau never sends agents, and alone you will receive tracers, subdermal implants, or little metal pieces that go in your blood. They let us know where you are at all times. And then what do? My father removed his hand, and I was tossed back into reality. With these injections, you will become a mobile listening tower. You are to remain as close to Rannon Shinnon as possible during the operation. When we are ready to move in, we will extract you. How long will that be? A month at most. We will be constantly monitoring you. You will be in no danger. I don't remember agreeing. All I remember is the series of injections with needles that plunge down to bone, all done in the silent room to shield my screams. Some of the strangers stayed up all night setting up equipment in a coat closet and basement of our home. I heard them all night because I didn't sleep at all as well. I could feel that this was my last night in my room. By noon the next day, the 2 monitoring posts were completed. I had my travel suitcase packed, and Robert Larynx was at the door again, just as he looked the day before. There was no more exchanges of papers or words. I just walked from the only house and family I knew. I never knew what good those monitoring posts did. When my house was no longer in view, the boy spoke to Emmy. "So, do you think you're a little government spy now?" My heart thumped in my mouth as the anxiety forced my throat closed. Robert continued, "Those tracking chips inside you won't Hawk. Clinton Moxley knows that. That means that he truly is giving you up. And do you know why? It was because of what I wrote on that slip of paper." "What did it say?" "Give up your son so that your mother can be free." My grandma was property of Rannon Shinnon up until a few minutes ago. Nobody escapes Mr. Shinnon, but you can trade your freedom with another in your bloodline. Your father saved his mother in exchange for you. It's a good trade. You can always have another son, but you have only one mother. So don't bear too mighty a grudge against your father's choice. I had been looking at the sidewalk this entire time that Robert talked, and I was taken with a sudden urge to run. I would have if my neighborhood had not changed. When I looked up from the ground, we were solemn. You were dark, rural and wooded, the sound of mad howling. Dogs seemed to echo everywhere. Run if you want to. This is a foreign country. That's why I said that tracking chip won't work. Nah, common, the child farms up this way. Farm, yep, pretty soon you'll forget whatever Rannon wants you to forget. You may even think that you were born on a child farm. Story 3. I was born on a child farm. There is no free will. Those are the first words I ever read. I woke to them every day for many years. They were written on a sign. The sign was hung above the opposite row of bun. KS and the sleeping barn. I have no memories from before. The farm, I assumed I was born there. None of the children there knew why we were here or where we came from. Nobody even knew how long we had been at the farm. Some children aged, some didn't. I can't remember much, but that's what happens when you are not given too much to remember. I remember always being deliriously hungry. We would be fed 3 small meals a day, but before everyone, Headmaster Rannon Shinnon would make us watch him sprinkle a few drops of clear liquid from a label-less brown bottle on the food. Then he would serve behind a steel door and slide out each meal through a window so you never knew if your meal was poisoned. Most of us danced around the edges of their food. Nobody was eager to dive in. Not when we had seen a dozen kids turn blue and die in front of us after picking the wrong meal. Several of us rarely ate the food. I never ate from my plate. I would scavenge what little clean scraps there were in the garbage. I ate for crows. They are just as disgusting as saying implies, and I would go full Renfield and eat flies, ants, dandelions, cockroaches, clovers, pillbugs, anything living and somewhat edible. I would keep the spiders. I had a special place for those. The 20 boys and 30-odd girls worked the fields that provided all the food to the farm. A crew, Blingwood compound fenced by tall barbed wire and the surrounding woods. Past that, the wilderness. Even though there wasn't spotlights or guards, the farm was much more inescapable than a prison. Every few weeks Headmaster Shinnon would take the near 100 of us to the edge of his farm, where he would blow a strange brass whistle. Bloodshot German shepherds sprang from the underbrush as if they had been waiting, for his call, mouths foaming as they gnashed their teeth on the rusted barbed wire, threatening to break in and chew us alive as the headmaster coldly smiled and spoke with a voice that sounded like gunshots fired far away. Their old guard dogs, gone rabid, I have learned through one of you. How to train them so they only obey me, and if you run, they will kill you or make you wish you stayed here with me. The farm never had answers. Very few people came. The rare delivery trucks, a prison boss, a black-tinted window Thunderbird that made a powerful turbine roar as if rocket engines were installed under the hood, and they only dealt with the headmaster, the only person to leave with the driver of the Thunderbird. There was a rumor that we were not real kids at all, that Headmaster Shinnon was a demon who crafted us all from blood and ash. We never dared speak to the headmaster, and asking a question was ludicrous, as a question would mean a touch from his hard, cruel hand, a hand that made the surrounding air a tin cushion of pain that would sting your skin even if his hand grazed yours. But above the poisonings, backbreaking labor and cleaning, scavenging for food, and never knowing a single day what was going on, we feared the night's worst of all. Being exhausted from working in the fields all day wasn't enough to overcome the fear to sleep. When it was darkest and the air had fallen still, we would hear the headmaster's creaking footsteps just appear in the center of the drafty barn without any kind of warning. Sometimes we would hear him walk on the roof, up the walls, on the ceiling. I can still hear his breathing if I close my eyes, that sick pig's wheezing agonized breath that sucked air in and out in a guttural exhale. The breathing and the footsteps would circle and circle until he heard someone cry. That's when the taken would give one last cry before they were gone. Along with the headmaster, the missing child would return to their beds in the morning bearing new MRK as a glancing finger left a nasty red and purple smear on one side. Sometimes black fingertips dotted their bodies. We would never say anything about these marks to anyone. We were always afraid the headmaster would hear and give us matching marks to boots. Sometimes he would touch you with his entire palm, leaving a wrinkled imprint as raw and painful as a hot iron brand. I had a few marks as well, but I considered myself lucky that I only had a few marks. As far as I could tell, I was one of her boys, and the 5 girls who cleaned the headmaster's home, the farmhouse. I cleaned the bathrooms, 10 emptied out the shit cisterns by slop bucket and rope. I cleaned the bathrooms, and eventually I found a few loose ceiling boards above the toilet when I was scrubbing for mildew standing on the windowsill. They were right above his toilet. I began thinking. This was my life for what felt like many years. I swore I could have named 25 separate times the frost came, but we had no way to keeping track of time, not even by our ages. I swore sometimes we would see a kid go from looking 13 to 14 back down to looking half that. Time made no sense at the farm, and I knew that I wasn't going to get out by waiting. When I had woke one morning to find a searing red-hot handprint of Headmaster Rannon Shinnon on my upper arm, a hazy starvation-induced plan emerged from the fog of my brain. I went to the special place by the cisterns where I had kept every black widow spider I had seen. Across, I kept them behind a false brick on the side of the farmhouse, where I had once collected 8 of them, and discovered that black widows were cannibalistic when grouped together. Only the strongest survived. I kept hosting tournaments until 108 black widow spiders were reduced to 26 of the most toxic, twitchy, and bite-crazy widows you never want to meet. I was bitten only twice and came very close to an agonizing death both times. I knew one bite wouldn't do a monster like Shinnon in. I was set. I was ready to enact the last stage of my plan when everything changed, in a cold day in early December, when a helicopter as black as the Thunderbird made a couple of low circles over the farm. Rannon Shinnon went insane. He poisoned half of the meals the day after the helicopter and after breakfast he took us all outside to form a queue outside the chicken slaughterhouse. When he began leading us in one by one, a few joined me and ran, judging from the screams he kitty most of the runners. But he didn't catch me. I spent many nights fantasizing about this moment. When I wasn't listening to his footsteps of sick breathing, I put the black widows inside an old compartmentalized chocolate box scavenge out of a wood pile, perfect for keeping each one locked away. I went up through the floorboards and hid in the space in the bathroom. The headmaster may not sleep through this paranoia, but everyone's gotta go. Eventually, even monsters. Those cisterns didn't shit themselves. It was dark by the time that he arrived with his candle. The sound of him pulling down his trousers and his simultaneous grunt masked the sound of me moving the planks above him aside and pulling the lid off the box of 26 nightmares, showering the headmaster with ravenous, crazed gladiators. My beauties began biting the headmaster as soon as they landed. The terror of the child farm, the demon named the Rannon Shinnon light curled around his toilet, eyes swelling shut, a mouth locked in a disgusted, surprised, outrageous gurgle of horror as spasms racked his whole body. Before his eyes swell completely shut, he saw my small 7-year-old face peering down the hole. In the darkness, the missing child. The headmaster began to cackle. I knew this could happen. There is no free will. It's fine. I lived 10,000 years already. I lived your happy summers, wonderful marriages, fruitful successes. Your life was beautiful beyond compare. That's why He smashed a few spiders scuttling around his face, but I could tell he was fading fast. You and I are ghosts now were his last intelligible words before the headmaster's breathing stopped. I hid for 4 hours before carefully making my way to the window, the safest place in the room. The spiders were done and gone. The chopper returned with a convoy of armed men right before sunrise. I was the only survivor of the farm. The captain of the operation was a man named Clinto. In Moxley, chief field investigator for the secured Bureau of Reclamation. He adopted me, and I took his last name. He was the one who named me Howard. He even said I knew him from before. He also said he was able to find me due to tracers injected into me before I went. I never knew I had them. I told my father what little I knew. He corrected me on a few things. He chooses victims who had good lives. My father would explain as he would tuck me in. His existence is the greatest evidence that time is a physical dimension, something that exists and can be crafted and stolen. He lives your years in just a few seconds. We believe he is responsible for over 100,000 homeless children across the world, another young human with a frail, old used-up timeline. I asked the only father I knew why he adopted me. He brought me to the master bathroom's dual mirrors and told me to take off my shirt. Because I owe you. You were an old man. Once, Howard, you were my partner within the Bureau. You were sent into the farm by yourself to try to shut it down. I will make sure you will get the help you need to remember. Dee hoped that you would remember something about your past on your own, but I see the headmaster got to you too. I looked behind me, using the set of mirrors to see my own back for the first time and seeing it covered in handprints. That was many years ago. True to headmaster's words, I had been a ghost among the living since then. It's been hard even sleeping, especially now. For the past few nights, I have heard both the headmaster's footsteps and rasping breath next to my bed. My father never said they found the headmaster's body. I know he wants me his farm back. He wants me he wants all his children back. Story 4. My son won't take off his Halloween costume. Being poor is tough, but it hits especially hard during the holidays. Halloween is the first reminder that you don. Have the disposable income for your kids' happiness. I took Austin down to a local thrift store we visited frequently. They had a rack of reject costumes from supermarkets, a few cheap latex masks, corny novelty party hats, and one very well-made green and yellow-bellied dragon costume that looked like it could fit Austin and Austin only, sitting alone next to a golf bag full of hockey sticks. It was painstakingly detailed. It had scales that actually shimmered, interlocked in tiny emerald shields, each with their own special symbol, hard like crystal, lighter than glass or even plastic. It was cute enough to make adults smile, and remarkable enough to finally make my poor son the envy of all the rich kids at his school. My son jumped into it without waiting. I appreciated the workmanship on the rubber-soled feet, individual fingers with claws, and lifelike tail and jaw. No stitches, no tag, custom handmade. Austin took the head of the dragon and slid it over his own, his bright smile eclipsed by the black mesh inside the dragon's open mouth. He begged me to get it. It wasn't cheap, at least for us, but well worth it for Austin. Austin wore the costume all day from then on. That was the 27th, when he went to his first friend's costume party of many. He was the hit of everyone, so it was no wonder why he loved the dragon so much that he wanted to sleep in it, seeing as how it was one giant, plush and armored sleeping bag. We agreed. It seemed like we kinda had to. The kid did all his chores and homework in that costume as if he Washington S. trying to buy favor with us before he asked if he could keep the costume on. We said yes. Even at school he could wear it until Halloween. Austin's school is very open-minded. The students loved the costume as much as everybody else. Even the teacher was fine with letting Austin keep it on during school hours. It was the first week where Austin the dragon didn't get in trouble. Austin even got a rare on his spelling test during the week before Halloween. He ate his veggies and brushed his teeth through a slot in the mesh that was hard to see at times, and it sounded like he was showering every night without us needing to tell him to. Why not let the kid have some fun? Austin's last Halloween is my bet for the best Halloween nights any kid has ever had. Every house Washington has its own little amusement park of treats and decorations, almost all of them for Austin the dragon. To legend that every kid spread at school. It seemed that every adult played along as knights or maidens or queens, and even some of the other kids copied his costume, leading a band of dragons to terrorize the neighborhoods looking for chocolate late into the weekday night. What we feared would happen came true on the 1st of November. Austin refused to get out of the costume. He was never a shrieker or a kicker before, but he was when my wife or I tried to unzip the back or reach for tea. He head of the dragon. After an hour of arguing and tears, we finally caved and sent our kid out to school looking like a fool. When my wife called me that afternoon saying it was the school and that it was an emergency, all I could imagine was a group of bullies beating up my son in his costume. I rushed all the way to the school nurse's room, where I saw my son on his stomach, laying in the reclined bed, still in the dragon. The nurse told us that a kickball had flown over the fence and bounced off a truck's bumper, launching the ball onto a lamp post, and then to the back on my son's head as he was walking out of lunch. A strange event, a stroke of back luck. path of the storm, and all that. The nurse did have good news. Said the helmet inside the costume may have saved his life, as she could still feel a pulse even with the costume on. Austin was unconscious and may have been hemorrhaging. We needed to get it off of him. The helmet was stuck tight, so were the side and bottom zippers. The nurse had to ask a custodian for a pair of pliers to get a better grip on the zipper tabs. The nurse clamped onto it and it tugged. My wife helped her. I should have left it alone, but I helped the two of them, with all three of us, straining. The zipper peeled down slowly like an embedded knife drawing through a torso with a sound that reminded me of wetwood splitting. The spa sea above the zipper split open to a deep crimson gash, flashing bones, muscles, and organs. My wife screamed as the nurse yanked up the zipper up alone, closing the oozing, bleeding zippers as best she could. As we picked him up, we followed our son in the facility school van emergency ambulance to the nearest ER and waited until dark. Until two women and two men entered our son's ER, wearing medical scrubs that were bright white while the others wore powder green. They each carried an official kind of walk, kind of a march with matching bright blue sole nurses' shoes. They look odd, like actors in a play, but as out of place as they seemed. This new crew gave my wife and I new hope. 10 minutes later, two of them walked out, one carrying the costume of the dragon, the other the head. One said to the other just a little more time and his meal would have been done. Shame. Still, I can't believe they let one of us get all the way to a thrift store. As they walked off down the hall, ignoring us, my wife followed them while I waited by the door for the other two. When the three of them left, a man exited the ER in a hurry. The last woman spoke in a strange accent to the man that left, like she learned English from a speech bot. You can't do that here. The man's voice was quick and sleek. Rules don't apply here, Maneater. This is just the cattle pen. I physically stopped the man with my arm. His brown eyes ruffled and shot down at me in indignant fury as I asked, "Do you know anything about my son Austin?" "Why would I know anything about your son?" The doctor wore one of those metal reflective discs on his head and a stethoscope that belonged on a TV set. His mask hid everything but those angry eyes. He smelled like gasoline, and he made out of limeys. I asked him what he was doing in the ER with that group and who he was. "Do you think I wear this mask just to advertise who I am?" He broke the contact with my hand and walked out of sight. I was so pissed I almost followed him before my wife, running, came back to me, breathless. She said those doctors stole the costume by walking out of the hospital, getting into a parked car, and driving away. We came back to ER and found the group standing outside, waiting for us. The doctors tried to explain that they didn't know what to do, as the costume app had to be fused with Austin's skin, and no matter where they cut into Austin. Nobody knew who the group of strange four were or how they got the costume off. My wife and I pushed our way in past the barricade of bodies to see the half-digested, bloody mess from hell all over the operating table and room. In the mess was Austin's watch, pickled and shriveled, like it had been sitting in a stomach for nearly a week. I ran from the ER so quickly that my shoes slipped off halfway through the sprint. The first thing my eyes landed on was the blue bathroom symbol, and I bolted there to throw up and have my breakdown. The men's room door was propped open, and I had no shoes left to make a sound. That's why the arrogant doctor who blew past me did. And stop pissing. He didn't hear me or see me. He was standing at one of the toilet stalls with his bright blue-soled shoes at one of the stalls, standing half in and out between an open door the front of. His head out of view, I saw what looked like his deflated face and neck resting on his shoulders like a coat hood not in use. He then grabbed his own face with fake lips and empty eye holes and pulled it out of view into the stall as he put it on. I heard what might have been a zipper closing up, and I swore I saw his body jerk up a bit, like he just noticed I was standing there. Hatching everything, I bolted out. Back to the arms of my crying wife. We called the staff, and we waited for the man in the men's room to exit. When no one did, we searched the place and found nothing but the toilet he was using, filled with blood and half-digested chunks of bone. Story 5. The new guard at San Quentin prison isn't human. My eyes opened quickly as I heard the whisper, "Wanna see something, Charlie? It happened last night." The newest prison guard on the block opened my cell, smiled, and informed me I was to gather my things and move to the end of our oldest cell, L block. He looked to be in his early 20s and had dark black hair to go with a perfectly kept uniform. I checked his name tag and then spoke. "Look, Lou, seems you're new around here. I've been in this cell going on 10 years. He held his grin. "Don't worry, you'll like it where I'm taking you," he said. I checked the clock in the prison. 8 p.m. It was late, and I was betting this was some type of rookie mistake. But what the hell was I supposed to do? He was a guard. This was his world. I figured there wasn't much point in arguing. The son of a bitch had a strange kind of smile, and I didn't need to make any more enemies around. Here, I gathered my things and headed over to my new home, at least for tonight. Luke closed the bars behind me. "Sweet dreams, Charlie," he said, whistling to himself and walking out of sight. I was alone now, and there wasn't another inmate for 6 or 7 spots in either direction. Though it seemed odd that I was put all myself, I wasn't complaining. A night of peace and quiet would be nice for once. After I had arranged the little possessions I had around my new cell, I kissed the picture of my daughter Addison and read from the Bible like I did every night. I looked down at the page, Hebrews 8:12. "For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more." I hoped that was true as I lay down and thought about what I had done to get in. Here, I have my doubts. The overhead lights to the cell block turned out for the night, and I must have drifted off to sleep, my eyes open. Head quickly as I heard the whisper, "Charlie." At first, I thought I imagined it. "Wanna see something, Charlie?" This time I recognized the voice as Lou, the new guard. What the hell did he want now? I lifted my head and put my feet on the concrete floor of the prison. As I looked through the bars of my cell, I couldn't believe what I saw. I doubt you will either. Lou was nowhere to be seen, though my cell and the bars were still intact. I now stared out into the scene of what looked like a carnival from a different time. What the fuck? I had to be dreaming. As I stepped closer towards the bars, I saw hundreds of people dressed in old Victorian clothing. I was even dressed like that, I realized, looking down at my own arms, which were now draped in some type of long black coat with silver buttons running along the cuffs. I watched as the people paid no attention, starting to take their seats around a circular stage. A bright red curtain could be seen swaying gently. As everyone in sight grew quiet, the lights dimmed completely now, and I stared out of the steel bars into complete blackness. Then I heard the distinct thump of a spotlighter as it brightened the old wooden stage. A moment or two passed while a feeling of imminent dread came over me. Then, without warning, a gloved hand popped out through the curtain and began to wave at the crowd. The children giggled and smiled as they eagerly awaited the show. Okay, enough of this shit. I grabbed hold of the bars and started to yell as loudly as I could. Guard! Guard! My yelling stopped as I saw the crowd turn, their faces towards me in unison. Their blank eyes stared at me with a deep malevolence. I moved back in my cell until I felt the hard wall against me. Their faces returned to normal as they looked back to the stage. The curtain slowly opened to reveal a tall clown in old-fashioned costume standing perfectly still at center stage. His hands suddenly moved in a blur as he pulled out a dead rabbit from his hat. Its rotting corpse sat limply in his hands. The crowd roared with laughter as the clown feigned embarrassment. Then another spotlight brightened a different part of the stage. A rectangular wooden box about 4 feet tall could now be seen. The clown began to cartwheel over, and then leaned up against it. I watched as 2 children from the audience walked through the seats and made a line in front of the wooden box. The clown smiled as the 2 children stepped inside. Then the curtain closed in front of them. When he pulled it open, the 2 children were gone. The audience roared now with laughter. One by one, each child in attendance walked up onto the stage in groups of 2. They were led into the box. The curtain would close, and when it opened, again the young children would be gone. Each time this magic trick was done, I could hear the crowd roar louder. They were almost convulsing in their seats as I watched the last child step into the box and vanish. The clown jokingly scanned the audience, making sure there were no children left. Then all at once the crowd grew silent. I watched as hundreds of parents stood together and walked wordlessly out from their seats and into the darkness without their children. It turned back towards the curtain, began to walk, and then stopped. My heart froze in my chest as the clown turned its head towards me. For the first time, it stared directly at me. I recognized the grin. And then the lights went out. I sat in the far corner of my cell until morning, more terrified than I've ever been in my life. And now you're up to speed on what happened. This was all last night, and I haven't seen Lou again since. Once a day, my name is called, and I'm given 90 minutes to use the internet on our computers in the prison. Besides writing this, I tried to research what the hell might be going on, but I haven't been able to find out anything. I sent a letter of complaint to the warden about my being moved to the empty corner of the block, but I was informed that he is out of town and not due to return for a few more days. I thought about telling someone about what happened, but God knows no one here would believe me. If anyone has any ideas on what I might be up against, please let me know. I don't know what Lou is, if that's even his real name. If that's even its real name, all I know is I'm scared as hell of what's going to happen tonight when the lights go. Story 6. I am a ghost. It's that time of year again. Another stupid Halloween night with a bunch of stupid kids breaking into my house just to prove they have balls to enter a haunted house Well, I'm a ghost, or at least that's what they call me. I'm not entirely sure what am I, just float around this empty house when no one is around. To keep me sane, I also write this diary of mine. It takes a lot of effort for me to manifest myself in order to touch physical things, but it's totally worth it. It might sound mundane to you, but I actually enjoy my time here. It's very peaceful until a bunch of stupid kids decided to show up every dang Halloween, each year bringing one or two new faces. This year was no exception. The first one to enter was a familiar face, a chubby kid, short curly hair, cheeks splattered with chocolate freckles, and flanked by two big round ears. A loud creak echoed through the empty halls as he took the first step onto the old wooden floor. His breathing was shallow and rapid, awkwardly puffing his chest in a sad attempt to appear nonchalant. The faint beam of his garrety mini rugged light failed to cut through the thick darkness that is waiting to engulf him and his friends into nothingness. "Oh, come on, guys, stop being a wuss," Chubby taunted his friends. "Are you sure this is a good idea? Let's just go and have more candies." "I don't like it here," a short but wiser kid replied. "Look, Kenny, we do this every fucking year. Don't you want to get laid? The girls in school would totally think we're badasses. Besides, I have my eyes on Debbie Reynolds, and I'll be damned if she isn't the slightest impressed." Chubby gaining more confidence. "God damn it, Billy. You're 12. Do you even know the meaning of getting laid?" said a tall, scrawny kid. Yes," Chubby replied unassertively. "Let's just get this over with so we can all go home and stuff our face full of chewy giant sweethearts." A kid with huge spectacles sighed. The rest hesitantly agreed and stepped in. One of them murmured something. I think it was a prayer or something. The thumping of their hearts grew louder as they ventured deeper into the dark halls. I started with their flashlight, lightly touching it so that it flickers. "Oh, shit. I forgot to change my batteries." Chubby laughed nervously. His friends flipped him the birdie at the same time and shook their heads in unison. That made me chuckle a little. "Fuck. Did you hear that?" the tall kid whispered. "Hear what?" "Stop messing around," said the short kid. "Ha ha, pussy," Chubby mocking the tall kid. "I swear one more word from your big fat mo." I interrupted the tall kid with a light whisper. "Get out." His face turned pale. GH, go. He choked on his saliva, decided not to finish his sentence, and ran all the way out of the house. "What's his problem?" scoffed a kid with a large spectacle. "What a wuss. Common, we'll just go upstairs, and then we're done." "Oh, Debbie, here comes Billy the Willie." Dang it, I thought to myself. It looks like the other three kids couldn't hear me. I was low on energy. Why? It takes a considerable amount of effort even for a whisper or a chuckle to be heard. Frustrated, I let out an ear-piercing scream. Well, at least it was ear-piercing to me. Those three kids barely even noticed it. They just stopped in their tracks, listened for a minute or so, and went on. I understand that some people are sensitive to a certain frequency and some people are not, which explains why the tall kid was the only one able to hear me. The others were completely oblivious. But I wasn't about to give up. With all my might, I forcefully will myself into a terrifying physica. L form, the usual horror cliché I heard from kids. Long dark hair, dark red liquid oozing out of my empty eye sockets. exposed muscle tissue and bits of broken bone sticking out of my body. I have to admit, if I were to look in the mirror now, I would have shat my pants. It's horrifying. As they were heading up the stairs, I appeared in front of them, and with my last bit of energy, I shrieked. It caught them by surprise. They screamed like little girls and ran out into the night. I let out a sigh of relief. I hope I scare the crap out of them, and they won't come back. I was exhausted, but I was also desperate. They say there is nothing to fear but fear itself. Yet in our world, that isn't true. Many things are worse than fear, and one of the things is his house, locked in the upstairs room, waiting to be set free. But I'm getting weaker year after year. Soon, I won't be able to scare the kids out of this house anymore. Soon, they will mac it upstairs. Soon, they will unlock the door. Story 7. Fear always finds you. Never go into the forest, child. My mother used to say to me when I was little. Horrible things lie within those forests. Horrible things. What kinds of horrible things, Mother? I'd ask in return. In the forests lie fear incarnate. For anything that you fear, that any of us fear, you may find it embodied in the forests. Has anyone ever been into the forest? Yes, child, many have tried to brave the forests, hoping to find something on the other side. Has anyone ever made it through? I don't know. Has anyone ever returned? At this question my mother would sit pensively for a moment, her expression becoming darker, more fearful and depressive. A few folks. Yes, what did they say? What had they seen? I would ask excitedly. Rarely did they say anything. Mother would say as she looked away from me, down at her lap. They were changed men. Not all lasted long back in the town. Did their fears find them, Mother? Fear always finds you, she'd say as she stood up. The conversation always ended here. Mother and I had this conversation many times over the course of our years together. It always went the same way, always ending with that final phrase, fear always finds you. Those words haunted me as a child. In a way, it also inspired Emmy. I lived in a small village, very small, though I never had other villages to compare it to. It was surrounded by thick forest, massive silvery trees fencing us in. From one side of the village you could see the trees growing next to the other side as clearly as if they were the trees next to you. Around the perimeter of our land we kept our crops, and our houses were condensed to the center. The number of villagers never went higher than 75. Births were usually followed closely by deaths. Children went to school during the day and stayed inside for most of the rest of their time, while their parents worked the farms. This modest life was never quite enough for me, though. I felt as though I were in a box with nothing to do and nowhere to go. The town was my prison, the forest the bars. I was never satisfied with what I was told in school. My curiosity could not be contained. It was always, how could we know anything about anything if all we had ever known was this small patch of land? What had come before then? What was in the forests that kept us from expanding, from leading better lives? Alas, my teachers never knew. My mother was the only one who would give me anything regarding the forests, and even she gave me so little. I knew not what she meant by horrible things or fear incarnate. I had to be satisfied with what I had been given. Going into the forest was taboo, Everyone knew that, and yet I still wanted to see for myself. When I reached the age of 17, I could no longer wait. It had been another night of quizzing my mother about the forests, again ending with fear. Always find you exasperated. I ran to my room and started to plot my escape. It was a simple plan. Run away. That's really all I could do. No one here sympathized with my curiosity. The only way to accomplish anything was to go into the forest myself. Maybe there was something on the other side of the forest, maybe even more people. This was such an exciting prospect to me, especially seeing as how I had grown so weary of the people there long ago. If this didn't pan out, I could always just turn back to the village. Mother said people before had made it back. I told myself, and as I seem to be a bit more competent than any of the people here, I'm sure I'll be fine. I grabbed a sack of some vegetables and, in the middle of the night while Mother was asleep, I snuck out. The village typically goes to sleep at sundown. Nevertheless, I made my way towards the forest with extreme caution. Reaching the edge of the crop area, I turned my complete attention to the woods. The seemingly impenetrable mass of trees was striking, almost freezing me in place. I realized with a jolt that I was scared of the darkness before me, scared of the unknown, scared of the trees themselves and all they symbolized. I thought back to my mother's words, for anything that you fear, that any of us fear, you may find it embodied in the forests. My fear was only reasonable, I thought. This is unknown territory. If I fear the forest itself, what else could find me within it? Fear always finds you, I muttered to myself. Bah! With that, I marched into the forest. It was a bizarre feeling at first, being entirely surrounded by trees. Only ever had I seen them from one side, enclosing my village. I trek onwards through them, trying to keep myself going in one direction, only able to see by the light of the moon. Even that light was largely hidden by the thick canopy above me that seemed to stretch on to touch the sky itself. The only sounds I heard were that of my breath and my footsteps. After what I took to be an hour of walking, I decided to stop and sit by a tree. I realized that in my anger earlier that night I had forgotten to eat supper. I pulled out some food and stared into the darkness around me. There was no movement, no more sound at our lines. It was surreal, serene, but ominous. Fear always finds you, I whispered to myself again. I'm doing fine so far. Thank you very much, Mother. My fear of the forest had abated over the course of my walk. It's just a bunch of trees, I said, fixing my gaze on a tree about 10 feet in front of me, where a beam of moonlight was falling through the dark. Suddenly something caught my eye directly to the left of that tree. I could hardly make it out, as it was still dark, but something in the darkness had moved. I jumped up to my feet, brandishing my meal like a weapon pointed at the dark spot. "Hello," I called out. "Is someone there? Have you come looking for me?" There was no more movement. I stood there for a few minutes, completely frozen, waiting for a response. I eventually resolved that it had been nothing, perhaps wind hitting a lower tree branch, and so I moved to sit back down. As I was turning back around, there was another movement. Larger this time, I whipped back around to glimpse it. Something there had moved closer, to be standing at the tree in front of me. I still could not see it. I flattened myself against the tree as on, breathing heavily now, timidly. After a moment, I spoke. Who or what is there? The shape moved closer to me, stopping just before being past the tree. It shifted itself so that slowly it emerged into the moonlight. I could only see its face, if it can so be called. What I had thought was darkness concealing it was actually just the thing's flesh, dark as the night itself, if not darker, pulled tightly around a slender rectangular skull. It bore 3 glazing, pearly white eyes set like a triangle above a lipless mouth, stretching as far round its skull as I could see, with flat yellow teeth. The lack of lips gave it the impression of smiling at me, though whether or not it really was looking at me I could not quite tell. A thin 2-fingered hand stretched itself in my direction through the light. The thing made a noise like a high-pitched laugh through its closed teeth. I dropped my food and bolted around my tree, running in the opposite direction. The laughter grew louder and more pronounced as I heard a whooshing sound from behind me. Looking back, I could see it sprinting after me, running at a ludicrous speed on what I could just make out to be 2 gangly legs supporting a gangly body. I ran as fast as I could, dodging between trees, trying to lose it, but it always sounded so close behind me, like it could just reach out with its long black hands and snatch me. When I looked to my sides, I saw it running beside me, never looking forward but staring at me. It never overtook me, but matched my pace exactly, and seemingly with ease I ran for as long as I could and as quickly as I could. Finally, I could run no more. I slid to my knees on the dirty forest floor, holding my head up, screaming at the canopy above me. When I had run out of air and had to stop this screaming, I heard the thing saunter up to me from behind. With surprising strength, it gripped me with both hands, lifting me off the ground and turning me to face it. I struggled to fight it, but my energy was gone. Its laughter grew louder and louder, deafening, but then suddenly stopped. I stared into its eyes. Slowly it opened its horrifying maw to reveal an inside as dark as the rest of it, tongueless, like a void. As I began to scream again, it shoveled me in. I awoke with a jolt at my tree, where I was still clutching my meal with both hands. Now it was still dark. With a sigh of relief, I took a bite out of my food. It had all been a dream. Thank goodness I was safe. I turned to my right to reach for the sack wire. The rest of my food in it. Less than an inch from my face was that same pitch-black face, all 3 eyes widened and gazing into mine. I yelled and threw myself backwards, landing on my back in the moonlight. Before I could get back up, it was on top of me, mouth already widened this time. It screeched laughter as its huge teeth closed around my head. Sometimes I wake up again at that tree. Other times, I wake up somewhere else in the forest, or already running from it. Once or twice I've been on the fringes of the forest, gazing out at the other side, when it jumps from above me and swallows me, starting everything over again. It's always the same monster chasing me, with those pearly eyes and teeth and skin like the night sky. I thought that I would be fine. In the forest, for anything that you fear, that any of us fear, you may find it embodied in the forest. I thought that I was fearless, that I would be safe in the forest. How could a fear of the forest persist within the forest itself? I was wrong. My fear stands just as strong, if not stronger here. It's that monster. I struggle with it over and over. I never escape The monster always finds me. Fear always finds me, too. Felix A.